What up, YouTube fam? Welcome back to another video. I'm JRoyce, Gym Bro, Tech Guy, and Reader. This is the first episode of JRoyceReads, which, by the way, is a working title. So if you guys got any ideas for a better title, make sure to drop those down in the comments below. But basically, in my last video, which, by the way, if you haven't checked that out, go check it out right up here. I went over this self-improvement protocol called Monk Mode. And in that video, I mentioned this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. And the reason that I mentioned this book so many times in that last video is because this book is a great guide on how to break bad habits and create good ones. And by creating those good habits, we actually become the people that we want to be. This book, Atomic Habits, is a New York Times bestseller and has been reviewed, mentioned, talked about by what it feels like almost every person on the planet. So I was like, why not add one more review to the pile? And in today's video, I'm gonna be going over the 5 big ideas that I personally liked from the book and share with you what really resonated with me and some practical steps that I took away from the book and how I'm actually applying them to my daily life. I linked a copy of the book down in the description below for your guys' convenience, and as always, there'll be timestamps below. All right, let's stop talking and let's start reading. So the first big idea I want to talk about is the importance of 1%. And oddly enough, I'm going to start off with a quote that's not actually from the book, but from the man himself, Albert Einstein. And the quote goes, "Compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it." Man, I love that quote. So if you're unfamiliar with what compound interest is, basically it's a simple investing strategy where you deposit a certain amount of money and then you earn interest on that money. So for this example, let's say you start with $100 and you earn 1% on that. So then now you have $110. And the next time you go to earn interest on that money, you'll actually earn 1% of $110 and so on and so forth. And the math grows really quickly once you start to dive deep into the numbers. It's the age-old story of, would you rather have a penny that compounds for 30 days or $1 million right now? It's called the grain of rice fable. Go look that up because everybody should know that story. So if you don't, you should definitely go check that out. Now, James Clear tells us in the book, habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. Now let's actually look at some numbers to back that up. So if you decide to get 1% better each day for an entire year, you would actually end up 37 times better by the end of the year. Conversely, if you decided to do nothing and didn't improve at all, in the same amount of time by the end of the year, you would actually end up towards 0. Now, if we apply that same knowledge to our investing example, common knowledge is that 8% is an average return on investment in the stock market. So pretty good. 10% or more would be really solid, like batting 400 in the MLB or basically having a really high QBR. Now, if you go to 15%, now that is just amazing. You are doing the Lord's work and everybody is calling you and talking to you about how to manage their money. So woo, amazing. But if you apply this logic of getting 1% better daily over an entire year, you would be doubling your return on investment on the most important investment we're ever gonna make, and that's on ourselves. So our life is basically a culmination of these small 1% decisions that we make daily, and our outcomes are a lagging measure of our habits. And what you'll see is that time magnifies the margin between success and failure, and it will multiply whatever you feed it. Good habits make time our friend, but bad habits make time our enemy. So we always have to be striving for those 1% improvements. So imagine a piece of ice in a room at 26 degrees, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. And then boom, at 32 degrees, the ice starts to melt. James Clear uses this example to showcase what progress actually looks like. And it's that slow heating up process from 26 degrees up into 32 degrees. So when we generally start any type of new thing, in the beginning, it seems that we're not making any progress. And there's a great graph that James made, which is called the plateau of latent potential. So in this graph, there's this place called the Valley of Disappointment. And a lot of people get caught up in this place because we don't ever give ourselves enough time to reach that goal. We expect progress to be linear, and it is often the opposite of linear. It has its ebbs and its flows and its ups and its down. And I want to show you guys an example right here. So let's say we want to change our bodies, right? And we start going to the gym maybe for a couple months. We're going along this line here. And then it's been a couple months and maybe we've lost a few pounds, but we don't have six-pack abs yet. You have two options. You continue to go to the gym and follow a diet, etc., or you can get caught in this valley of disappointment. And so let's say you decide to keep on going in the gym. So you keep going. And then one day, sooner rather than later, you cross the plateau of latent potential and you have the dream body that you want. But in the moment, it didn't feel like you were making that much progress. But what you were actually doing was storing that energy. And then one day it explodes like 32 degrees and you get the results that you want. And oftentimes, something that we don't recognize is when we see other people succeeding in what seems to be an overnight success, we actually don't know how much time it took for them to reach that level, how many reps it took, how many times they went to the gym, etc. So just keep that in mind, that progress actually looks like this. It's not a linear fashion thing. It has its ups and its downs, and you need to give it enough time for it to actually cross the plateau of latent potential. And the next big idea that is kind of out of the ordinary is that James Clear argues that there's 4 major issues when we solely focus on goals. And the first one is that winners and losers have the same goals. So every Olympian wants to win a gold medal, obviously. And every time we apply for a job, we want to get the job. So the goal can't be the thing that differentiates the winners and losers because we all aspire to have the same goals. So James Clear argues that the habits are basically what differentiates us and gives us different results from the winners and the losers. And the second thing that James argues is wrong with goals is that achieving goals are only a momentary change. And he uses the example of a messy room. So let's say your room's really messy and you decide to clean it. You got a result, a clean room. But if the systems in place are not aligned with that, you're going to end up with a messy room. So let's say you fold your clothes and then you throw them on your bed and you don't put your dirty clothes in the dirty laundry. If you don't fix those systems, the problem is going to keep occurring. What we really need to change are the systems that causes the results that we want. So if we want a clean room, we need to make sure there's a system in place so that the room never gets messy. And the third argument against goals is that they can actually restrict your happiness. And James talks about this in a few ways. So the first way is they actually can delay happiness when you say, I'll be happy when I hit X goal. And so the problem with that is that you're delaying happiness till you reach a certain goal, and odds are you'll actually move that goal to something else after you hit that goal. So it gets into this vicious cycle of like, when are we actually ever going to be happy? And then the second way it does this is setting goals creates this either or scenario where you achieve your goal and you're successful, or you fail and you're a disappointment. But when we're en route to achieving our goals, it's not going to happen the exact way we set it out to be. And if we're so attached to it happening that way, we're going to delay our happiness or not be able to accept whatever the new version of happiness is going to be. And that's one of the ways that goals restrict happiness. And the last thing that James argues about goals is that goals are at odds with long-term process. And there's only one person who can describe this better than the book, and that is Kobe Bryant. And when you listen to this, just switch dreams and goals as interchangeable for this example. Let's watch.
You know, if you do the work, you work hard enough, dreams come true. You know that, we all know that. But hopefully what you get from tonight is the understanding that those times when you get up early and you work hard, those times when you stay up late and you work hard, those times when you don't feel like working, you're too tired, you don't want to push yourself, but you do it anyway. That is actually the dream. That's the dream. It's not the destination, it's the journey. And if you guys can understand that, then what you'll see happen is that you won't accomplish your dreams. Your dreams won't come true. Something greater will.
To sum that up, when we work hard and we're so focused on a particular goal, it's almost limiting in the sense is that we put a cap on where we want to go. But if we really focus on that endless refinement and continuing to play the game and fall in love with the process, where we could end up could potentially be so much higher, making the goal kind of limiting. So the third thing I wanted to go over was identity. Now, James Clear argues in the book that an identity-based approach is the most powerful form of motivation when it comes to developing habits. Now, what does this mean? There's 3 ways to approach changing our habits. There's the outcome-based approach, which is setting a goal or an end result. There's the processes-based approach, which is changing your habits and systems. And then there's the identity approach, which is this changes everything you believe to be true about yourself. So, for instance, if you want to be a healthy person, there's 2 ways you could go about it. An outcome-based approach is saying, I would like to lose weight. So that's level 1. And then 2 is the systems that follow that, following a diet, going to the gym. And then level 3 is getting the outcome that you want. Now, James argues the better way to go about that is saying, who is the person that you actually want to become? So with an identity-based approach, you would start from the middle and say, I want to be healthy. And then every decision after that, basically levels 2 and 3, comes out from the I want to be a healthy person mindset. So an example of this would be if somebody offers 2 people a soda and one person says, no thanks, I'm trying to cut back. There's an identity conflict because that person doesn't align with who they believe to be true, so they have to make a difficult decision, not accepting that soda. As opposed to person B who answers that question, would you like a soda? They say, no thanks, I don't drink soda. That decision was a lot easier for the second person because it aligns with their identity of I'm a healthy person and a healthy person doesn't drink soda. So the first 4 things we just went over are actually only within the first 40 pages of the book. So the first quarter of the book is really mindset heavy when it comes to habits. But the majority of the book, James goes over 2 main points. And the first is how habits are formed and how they actually work. And the second is the 4 laws of behavior change, which is a framework that James created on actionable steps on how to break bad habits and create good ones. So how do we actually build these habits? Well, that can be boiled down to 4 main things, which James calls cue, craving, response, and reward. Now, there's 4 stages of a habit and they create this thing called a feedback loop. And basically the cue triggers the craving motivates a response, the response provides a reward, and then the reward satisfies the craving. And all of our innate behavior is driven by this desire to solve a problem, whatever that is. And so this 4-step process is called a feedback loop and is essentially active during every day of our lives, trying to predict information what the best possible plan of action is to solve our problems. Now, that was a really simplified version of the feedback loop. And if you want to go more in depth on that, I recommend you pick up a copy of the book for yourself because James explains this way better than I just did, but that's just a quick summary. But based on this framework of cue, craving, response, and reward, James created what we talked about earlier is the 4 laws of behavior change. And spoiler alert, if you want to read the book, pause here. I'm actually about to put up on the screen a complete framework for each one of these cue, craving, response, and rewards. So as you guys can see, this is a complete guide on the actionable steps on how to create good habits, which is on the left, and how to break bad ones, which is on the right hand side. In the book, James really goes in depth on each individual step on how to take action, which is why, again, I recommend you pick up a copy for yourself. But in the next part of the video, I'm gonna be going over the 7 action items that stood out to me the most and how I'm applying them to my daily life. So the first thing that really stood out to me is what's called an implementation intention. Damn, that's a mouthful. And it's basically saying I will perform behavior X at X time in Y location. And it's writing this down. And so what we're doing is when we write these things down and give it specificity, we're actually way more likely to go through with that new habit or task. So when we start a new habit or try to create this change in ourselves, we oftentimes do this without having like the basics figured out of like where we're actually gonna do it. We'll say like, oh, I'm gonna eat better, or I'm gonna read more, but we never say like, well, when are we actually gonna do that? And where's that gonna happen? And so what happens is we leave those things up to chance or hoping to feel really motivated in a specific moment when we have free time. And an implementation intention gets rid of that. It makes those really unclear goals like, I wanna work out more, I wanna be more productive, and it puts it into plan. Many of us think that we don't have the motivation to like start new habits, but what we're really lacking is the clarity on how to do it. This one really struck home for me. I like this one a lot, and it's make it invisible. So James in the book goes in depth to how we sometimes think that disciplined people or motivated people have some magical stuff that we don't have. And his argument is actually that they put themselves in an environment that allows them to use their discipline as least as possible. And an example that personally stood out to me was on my desk, I have a phone charger that puts my phone right in front of my face. So when I'm trying to edit and focus, having that phone in front of my face is a terrible idea. So instead of using my discipline or motivation to not check my phone, by making it invisible and putting it in another room, I don't have to use my discipline because the temptation of going through my phone has been removed. And this one's really important when starting a new habit. Join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. Now, in the book, James talks about the 3 biggest groups that we imitate, and that is the close, the many, and the powerful. But the one that I want to focus on is the many. So when starting a new habit, depending on what your tribe is, change can be unattractive or attractive. When changing your habits is challenging that tribe, then change becomes really unattractive. But when you're changing your habits and it means you're fitting in with the tribe, then change is very attractive. And why is that? So if you're trying to eat healthy and work out all the time, but you hang out with people who don't work out and eat fast food, it's gonna be unattractive because you're not gonna fit in. But if you go to the gym, make some friends, and people who associate with being healthy and those healthier lifestyle changes, then change becomes very attractive. So you want to focus on building that community where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. And the 4th thing I want to go over that I really liked was reduce friction. The idea is that we want to create an environment where it makes the right thing as easy as possible to do. And a lot of the battle of actually building better habits comes down to reducing friction for our good habits and increasing friction for our bad habits. So my attempt at reducing friction for reading was buying a Kindle. And reading a book in general is kind of a pain in the ass. Like the books are all different sizes. You got to find a place to read it. You got to find the perfect lighting. And then if I want to highlight anything, I got to bring a whole nother pack of stuff, where the Kindle reduces all that friction into a very simple solution. And that makes me way more likely to keep up my reading habits. And by the way, I'll be doing a review on that in upcoming videos, so make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss that. And the 5th idea that was really big for me is master the decisive moments. Now, James Clear talks in the book that habits are often the entry point and not the end point. And I have a really good example. So I would have this really good morning routine where I'd wake up, drink my water, meditate, make breakfast, and then I would come up to my room and either go on my phone for 5 minutes or get dressed and go directly to the gym. Now, if I go on my phone for 5 minutes, that often spiraled into 30 minutes of me scrolling and basically setting up my day for failure because it pushes back all of the other stuff I had planned. As opposed to when I get dressed and go directly to the gym, I feel way more productive throughout the day. And James talks about these small decisive moments that actually have way bigger impacts and lead you down a rabbit hole of the desired results. So when you do those 5 minutes of social media, it actually leads you to a long span of being unproductive, or putting on your gym clothes leads you to a day full of productivity. And there are tons of these small decisive moments that actually dictate how our day goes. And the sixth one I want to talk about is make it difficult. Like we talked about earlier in the video, we want to reduce friction for good habits and increase friction for bad habits. And basically, we're gonna take the path of least resistance every time as humans. So if we're really trying to break a bad habit, we need to make it as hard as possible to start. And in my last video, Monk Mode, I actually mentioned a tip I learned from Thomas Frank himself. And that is, every time I'm done using social media, I actually log out of all of my accounts. And this produces just enough friction to save me a few doom scrolling sessions per day. And over time, those add up. So make it difficult. And the eighth thing I want to talk about is never miss twice. So no matter how consistent we are with any of these habits, life is going to happen and perfection just isn't possible. But the key point here is to never miss twice. And I think that's a really powerful mindset to have. The first mistake generally isn't the one that ruins us, but it's the spiral of repeated mistakes after that that follows it and messes us up. And James Clear talks about a distinguishing feature between winners and losers is that anybody is going to miss or have a bad day or a bad workout or a bad performance. But what successful people do is they rebound quickly. Their ability to break the habit doesn't matter, but what matters is their ability to reclaim that habit as fast as possible. And that's why you can't miss twice. So bonus tip for you guys, because this didn't have its own section, but I think it's really important. So there's a common idea that it actually takes 21 days to form a new habit, and that's actually wrong, scientifically as well as anecdotally. And in a scientific study, which I'll link down below, it says it actually takes around 66 days to form a new habit. And James Clear talks about in the book that more importantly than talking about how long does it take to form a new habit, we should be asking how many times does this take to form a new habit? And the reason that is because it's all about repetition over time. So to form a new habit, the time is actually irrelevant. What matters is the rate at which we perform the behavior we want to become a habit. I just went skiing recently, and this is a perfect example. If I want to become a better skier but only go skiing once a year, I'm not going to get good that fast. But if I'm somehow able to go skiing every weekend, I'm going to be learning so much quicker because the amount of times I'm going skiing is so much more than the 1 day per year, which is why repetition over time is so important. So to wrap this up, guys, I think there's a lot of great knowledge in this book that anybody can apply to their daily life to create better habits. I really enjoyed this book, and I'm excited to keep reviewing these books for you guys in the future. And if you made it this far, guys, I truly do appreciate it. And if you found any value in that video, make sure you smash that subscribe button. Lets me know that you guys are really enjoying the content and want to be a part of the JRoyce community that I'm trying to build. And it also lets me know that you guys find the content that I'm actually creating helpful. I put my all into these videos, guys, to bring you as much value as I possibly can. I'm constantly learning, improving, and I want to share the ideas that I think are truly powerful so that to help you guys apply them to your lives so that you guys are also inspired to chase your dreams, reach that goal, or just, literally learn along the way with me. And before I end the video, I want to leave you guys with my favorite quote from the book. Success is the product of daily habits, not a once-in-a-lifetime transformation. That said, it doesn't matter how successful or unsuccessful you are right now. What matters is whether your habits are putting you on the path towards success. You should be far more concerned with your current trajectory than with your current results. As always, I'm JRoyce. That's it for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.